The 5-Minute Momentum Protocol. How to stop procrastinating in 300 seconds. Welcome to my channel, Habit Compass. I am so excited you're here today because we're going to tackle something literally all of us struggle with. You know that completely daunting, overwhelming feeling when you need to start a massive task? Yeah, we've all been there. You've got this huge project, a big scary goal, or heck, maybe just a wildly messy room that's begging to be cleaned. And you just freeze. You stare at it. You suddenly find absolutely anything else to do. Well, in this video, we're going to unpack a remarkably simple psychological strategy from our sources to completely dismantle that paralysis.
Okay, let's dive into this. The hardest part of any task isn't the work itself, it's the first 5 minutes. I want you to really let that sink in for a second. When we think about procrastination, right, we so often beat ourselves up. We think, oh, I'm just lazy or I have zero discipline. We get stuck in this heavy, sinking validation of our own avoidance. But this quote, it hits the nail on the head. It pinpoints the exact truth of our struggle. Because it's not the hours of actual work that defeat us, it's the transition. It's that incredibly heavy, painful friction of going from doing absolutely nothing, or, doing something super easy, to doing something hard. Those first 5 minutes are exactly where the battle is either won or lost.
Part 1. The procrastination boulder.
So to really understand what's going on in our brains during those agonizing first few minutes, we need a visual. Think of a massive, seemingly immovable obstacle blocking your path. On one side, we have the big project. And let's be real, this isn't just some regular line item on a to-do list anymore. In our minds, it's morphed into this giant, intimidating boulder. It's heavy, it's dense, and it looks utterly impossible to move. And on the other side, well, there's us, the stick figure. This represents our tiny, finite willpower. We're just sitting there on the couch, completely overwhelmed, with those frantic, swirly anxiety lines hovering right over our heads. It is a classic David versus Goliath scenario. The sheer size of that big project completely dwarfs our mental capacity to deal with it in the moment. So honestly, no wonder we stay on the couch. Our brain takes one look at that giant boulder and just says, nope, absolutely not today.
Part 2. The 5-Minute Rule. So how in the world do we actually conquer this boulder? Because trying to summon some kind of superhero strength to lift the entire rock all at once, yeah, that's clearly not working out for us. We need a highly specific, targeted solution to break this paralysis. 300. It's bold, it's precise. But what does it actually mean? Well, it isn't some massive score you have to achieve, and it certainly isn't the weight of the boulder. This number represents exactly 300 seconds on a ticking clock. Yep, that is exactly 5 minutes. We're basically going to shrink the entire battlefield. We're taking it from weeks, days, or hours, all the way down to a window of just 300 seconds. Because that is the exact amount of time it takes to completely change everything about your productivity. Here's how this translates into the stick figure execution plan. Step 1. You set a timer for 5 minutes. Your only job, and I mean your only goal here, is to stand up and just touch the boulder. You don't have to push it to the top of the mountain. Just touch it. Step 2. You start to push, just a tiny bit. Maybe you write a single sentence. You organize one single folder on your desktop. And suddenly, the boulder moves an inch. Step 3. The timer starts ticking down. 4, 3, 2, 1. It hits 0. And guess what happens next? You just keep pushing. Why? Because you're already in motion. The absolute hardest part is over. That initial friction is completely gone, and you've already built up the energy you need to keep going.
Part 3. Implementation Intentions. Explained.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real magic and the psychological science behind this whole protocol. Here's the formal definition, straight from our source material. Implementation intentions. Essentially, it means utilizing a low-friction entry point to successfully bypass the brain's natural resistance to large, intimidating tasks. Now, what's really fascinating here is that phrase, low friction. Think of your brain kind of like a bouncer at an exclusive club. It absolutely hates massive, draining tasks, and it will literally lock the doors to keep them out. But when you create this tiny 5-minute entry point, it's so small and non-threatening that the bouncer just waves it right on through. You're successfully tricking your own brain. You're bypassing its natural alarm bells simply by lowering the barrier to entry so much that you literally can't say no.
Part 4. Momentum overcomes willpower.
Which brings us to the psychological magic of what actually happens the exact second that timer hits 0. Why is the task suddenly so much easier to keep doing? Well, the answer is incredibly simple. Just start. Simply initiating the action is the ultimate catalyst for getting the work done. You don't need a perfectly detailed roadmap to finish the whole project right this second. And you definitely don't need endless motivation. You literally just need to start. Because once that physical and mental action begins, your brain actually shifts gears. It moves out of that state of anxious avoidance and clicks right into an active state of problem-solving and engagement.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. Momentum is greater than willpower. Think about it. Willpower is kind of like a battery, right? It trains over time. It gets super weak when you're tired or stressed or even just hungry. If you're relying on brute force willpower to move that giant boulder every single day, you're going to burn out and you'll end up right back on the couch with those swirly anxiety lines over your head. But momentum? Momentum is basically a physics principle applied to your brain. An object in motion stays in motion. Built-up momentum is infinitely more powerful and way more self-sustaining than sheer willpower could ever be. Those 300 seconds, they aren't about finishing the job. They're just the spark that ignites the momentum.
Which leaves us with this final incredibly important question. What giant boulder can you give 300 seconds to right now? Seriously, take a look around your life, glance at your to-do list, or think about your big goals. Identify that heavy, immovable project. Stop trying to lift the whole thing at once. Just set a timer, stand up, and touch the boulder for 5 minutes. See what happens when momentum takes over. If you learned something new, subscribe to the channel for building better habits through navigating Compass, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.